are listening to Behnaz Akka, and it's time for our advice hour. And if you have trouble sleeping or know someone who struggles to get 40 winks, then this is one you definitely want to hear. Dr. Lindsay Browning is chartered psychologist, neuroscientist and sleep expert. She's joining me today to share some fantastic sleep advice. Do get in touch if you do have any questions for Dr. Browning. Call or WhatsApp 03700 100 110. You can text us on 81012 or email benaz@bbc.co.uk. Hello, Lindsay. How are you doing?
Hi, yeah, great. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you on the show today. And we can't have a sleep expert on the show without discussing insomnia. So I was just wondering if you could first of all explain to us the difference between having difficulty sleeping and actually having insomnia.
Sure. So insomnia isn't when people don't sleep at all. Sometimes people think that's the problem. But insomnia means when you regularly have difficulty either falling asleep, staying asleep, and that you wake up the next morning or don't wake up, but you feel really like you're impaired, you're feeling sluggish, tired. If that's been going on for some time, at least sort of 3 nights a week, then that's what we sort of talk about as insomnia.
And is there a group of people that are more likely to suffer with insomnia?
Insomnia it can affect anyone throughout their lifetime, but us as women, we tend to have a higher risk of having insomnia compared to men, but it genuinely can affect anybody from students right through to older adults. So it depends on what's going on in your life. Maybe if you're having a stressful time, that certainly can trigger it, or something medical, perhaps the menopause. Anything when your sleep goes a bit wrong, that can trigger you to start worrying about your sleep. And then before you know it, that short-term sleeping problem has turned into an ongoing issue that you just can't shift.
And how long is kind of long enough before you should go and seek professional help for these 2-3 nights a week that you're not sleeping or more?
Well, if you're going through a stressful time and maybe you had some really bad news or you've got an exam the next day, those kinds of short-term stresses, it's perfectly normal and reasonable to expect to sleep poorly. It's when that goes on to become the norm. Maybe it's been going on for a number of weeks, especially if it's been going for 3 months. But if it's been going on for less and it's really affecting you, it's worth speaking to your doctor. But don't feel that there's nothing you can do about it. Lots of people go on with poor sleep for months, years even, thinking, oh, well, I'm just a poor sleeper. There's nothing I can do about it. And I really want to reach out to anyone who thinks like that and tell them that they really can seek help for their insomnia, for improving their sleep. And it isn't just talking about sleeping pills. There are treatments that can really, really help you to improve your sleep that are just behavioral, changing some things, and you should be able to get access to that kind of therapy via your GP.
Can you give us an example of some of those therapies, apart from taking pills, that can help you get your sleep back in order?
So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is a bit of a mouthful, or CBTI, is the NICE guideline NHS recommended treatment for sleeping problems. And that is non-pharmacological. It doesn't involve sleeping pills. And what it does involve is looking at someone's sleep, maybe using a sleep diary, finding out what someone's doing, and then recommending some changes, maybe to what to do before you go to bed, or what to do once you've gone to bed if you can't fall asleep. When to get up, those kinds of things, looking at what you're doing during the day and before bed and in the night that maybe are causing your sleeping problem to continue. And CBTI is really, really effective.
And I wonder if insomnia has become more of an issue since we've had these smartphones and these tablets and these things that we kind of carry around everywhere with us with the blue light. Has it become more of an issue, would you say, over the past, say, 10 years?
So insomnia, as with all mental health issues, we've got a lot more visibility about it. People are a lot more aware of it. And certainly loads more people are seeking treatment for their sleeping problems. Now, obviously, there's an increase in use of smartphones. Whether that's caused the issue isn't necessarily that clear. But certainly, if we are on our phones in bed, just scrolling endlessly, we kind of can forget to go to bed almost. And that can result in really bad sleeping habits. And once we start getting into the habit of scrolling through our phones, forgetting to go to bed, then our sleep goes out of whack. And then when we do want to go to bed, we can struggle to do so.
Well, I don't know anybody who doesn't go to bed with their phone.
Yeah, it's true.
It's awful. And I'd love to say, oh, I don't do that, but I do that at 10:50. It's my way of unwinding almost. I'm inviting the world into my quiet space just before I go to sleep.
It depends what you use your phone for. So some things using your phone before bed can be quite helpful. Maybe you've got a reading app on there. Maybe you're like a Kindle or something, you're reading an ebook, or maybe you use your phone to listen to sleep meditations or some kind of guided mindfulness, in which case then that's not a bad thing before bed. But it's when we're using our phone for just mindless rubbish that, things like social media, they're designed to be addictive. They really are. You don't scroll through TikTok or Twitter and get to the end of it and you go, oh, look, I finished TikTok.
There's no end, is there?
There's literally no end. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I try to do that earlier on in the night because it's quite addictive, and I put a bit of a time span on how long I want to be on it. Otherwise, as you say, it just keeps on going. Are there any foods or drinks that we should maybe avoid? Because I love having cheese end of the night, to be honest, and it's meant to be good for your teeth as well. But are there any foods or drinks that we should avoid that maybe disturb our sleep?
So anything that's particularly fatty or spicy or really heavy can give us a bit of indigestion and might interfere with sleep. Cheese isn't a bad thing necessarily, but of course it can be quite high in fat. But cheese is made from milk. Milk contains tryptophan, which actually is a thing that we use to make melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. Going to bed, having just had any kind of big heavy meal is going to be not great for your sleep. So it's good to make sure that your main meal is a few hours before you go to bed so that you don't disrupt your sleep with having too much still in your stomach as you're trying to go to sleep.
And I would imagine in terms of drinks, sugary drinks can disturb your sleep, and even alcohol disturbs your sleep quite a bit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, alcohol is one of those drinks that a lot of people use thinking it's helpful for sleep. Because if you have a glass or two of wine, you find yourself falling asleep more easily. You might think, oh, great, I had a sleeping problem, now I don't. But the trouble is alcohol, yes, it helps you to fall asleep or rather pass out quickly. But once you have gone to sleep, alcohol really disrupts the quality of your sleep. So yes, it really is not a good idea to use alcohol to help you sleep, because it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And sugary drinks can give you that sort of burst of energy that we don't need. Something like a nice chamomile tea or some kind of decaffeinated drink before bed could be really good to just help you calm down and relax before bed.
Loving the sound of that. Thank you very much, Lindsay. If you do have any questions for Lindsay, get in touch. And I know we've lost the heat a little bit now, but it's always good to get some guidance on how to cope with the heat when it comes to the nighttime. I certainly don't like sleeping with air conditioning, and I know most houses in this country don't have it anyway. But why is it so hard to sleep when it's hot? Is it just a case of we're not used to it?
Well, when we fall asleep, our body temperature, our core body temperature naturally drops by about 1 degree. So if the room that you're in is too hot, then our body simply struggles to drop in temperature, meaning that it's really hard to fall asleep or stay asleep. So that's why in the UK, especially when we have a heat wave, because we don't have the air conditioning, people really can struggle to sleep. Similarly, when someone is menopausal and has like a hot sweat, a night
hot flashes, yeah.
Yes, exactly, hot flashes. Then they can also really struggle to fall asleep because, again, your body temperature can't drop that it needs to do to fall asleep.
So what do you do?
Well, if you're talking about a heat wave, then it's most important to stop your bedroom from getting hot in the first place. And that's where some things that might sound a bit strange come into play, such as not opening your curtains. On a beautiful day, the first thing you do is open the curtains. But if you open your curtains, you're letting the bright sunshine warm the bedroom up itself. And also keep your bedroom windows closed during the day, because the outside air is going to be so much hotter. And then when evening comes, the sun goes down, the temperature will start to drop outside. That's the point. You can open those windows to let the breeze through. So it's really a lot about trying to avoid the room getting hot in the first place. If it's a really spectacularly hot day, we've had some really hot ones like that, then you could take some more dramatic measures. Such as if you live in a townhouse or like a 3-story house, the top floor can get unbearable, in which case maybe consider, temporarily sleeping in a lower bedroom or even downstairs. You could have a family sleepover in the lounge. It might be fun. If you're sleeping in a bunk bed, definitely choose the lower bunk. And then think about getting a fan just to help move that air around. You could try to have a cool shower before you go to bed. They'll help you to cool down. And it's specifically a cool shower, not a cold shower, because if you have a cold shower, that can really sort of shock the body and actually wake you up more, rather than a cool shower helps to gently and gradually lower your core body temperature, which is what you need to fall asleep.
And what about the clothes that we wear? Does that have any impact?
Yeah, so you could consider not wearing clothes, but if you do want to wear clothing, then something natural fibers are really good, like linen, cotton, even silk, because they can help to absorb, wick away any sweat that you produce, and also they're breathable. So polyester fabrics can actually be quite not helpful in hot weather because they don't allow the air to move within them, and they allow sweat to kind of just stick on the surface. And although you can sleep without clothes, like I said, if you do have pajamas or nightie, then that can actually be helpful because you can swap that if you get too hot and sticky. And it means that if you take the covers off your bed, you've still got a layer there, so you're not feeling too cold if you wake up in the middle of the night with nothing on.
And I was saying about not being able to sleep with air conditioning. Whenever I do, I get ill. But sleeping with a fan, is that okay?
Yep, of course, if you've got young children, you've got to make sure the cable, the fan itself is away from you. But yeah, sleeping with a fan can be really helpful because it helps to just move the air around the room, keeping that breeze across your skin, which helps you to cool down. You could put some water in front of the fan, or even a cold iced bottle of water. So it's almost like free or cheap air conditioning, because it's going to blow that cooler water vapor around the room, which can help as well.
It's quite nice, actually, to maybe go to bed with an ice pack if it's really hot, isn't it? Or is that a bad idea, making your body too cold?
Well, again, if you touch something ice cold, that can be not very good for your skin and can give you a bit of a shock. But you could certainly use an ice pack or a water bottle, like a hot water bottle, but full of cold water or even ice water in the bed to help cool the bed down before you get into it. But I wouldn't advise sleeping with that in direct contact with your skin.
I almost feel like on hot nights, I don't want anybody else in the bed either. I feel like separate bedrooms would be the thing on the very hot nights.
Two bodies make more temperature. Absolutely. So again, if you have enough space in your house, maybe sleeping separately, or if you have that's where a big double bed or a king size or whatever bed can actually be really helpful, because if you're two of you in a smaller bed, close proximity, then your own body warmth is going to add to that temperature.
And I mentioned holidays and air conditioning, and I'm just wondering if you could give us some advice on how we can cope with jet lag, because there'll be a lot of people going off on maybe long haul holidays, and it's horrible the first few days, isn't it?
Yeah, jet lag is one of those things that we can't avoid. If we're in a different time zone to what we're used to, our circadian rhythm, our internal body clock, it doesn't change. You can't just change from one time zone to another. And that jet lag is when we're still on the old time zone. Now, what you can do is to try and gradually adjust to the new time zone before you even go on holiday. This can be really, really helpful if you've got young children and you don't want to be dictated to their nap schedule when you're on a fun, relaxing holiday. So before you even go on holiday, think about, are you going somewhere ahead or behind of your time zone, and try and move a little bit towards that. Because even if you move by an hour or two towards that new time zone, you'll find that when you go on holiday, you're immediately nearer that and it'll be less disruptive. The same thing with coming home. If you have to go back to work quite quickly, you might want to slightly adjust your sleeping schedule to become more like a UK time zone before you even leave your holiday. So again, when you come back, you're in a much better place to start work or school or whatever it is you're going to go.
So really start thinking about it as you're getting on the aeroplane as well, and how you kind of schedule your sleep on that plane too.
Yeah.
Okay,
sleeping
brilliant.
and eating.
And eating as well. Yes, great advice. Thank you very much, Lindsay. We are chatting in detail about sleep in our advice hour today with the brilliant Dr. Lindsay Browning. And I'm always intrigued to find out about napping. I never get the opportunity to do it, but on holiday, I thoroughly enjoy napping in the afternoon because I'm not working. So are there benefits to napping? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the afternoon, does it?
Well, there's a best time to nap, and actually just after lunch, early afternoon is the best time to do that. So napping can be really, really beneficial if you're not able to get enough sleep at night because life is stopping you. So, for example, if you've got young children, you're working too much and you can't go to bed on time because you've got to stay up late for a work project, or for some other reason you can't get enough sleep that night, then having a brief afternoon nap of about 20 to 30 minutes maximum can be really, really helpful to improve your mood, your alertness, and your performance. But if we nap for too long, if we nap later in the day than that, and also if we're napping because we can't fall asleep at night because we have insomnia, in those cases, napping probably isn't a good idea.
So how long should you be napping for?
Yeah, so about a sort of 20-minute power nap, it can be really ideal because if we have a sort of 20-minute nap, that gives us enough sleep to feel a bit refreshed and help pick us up for the afternoon. But it doesn't make us go into a deep part of sleep. And when we fall asleep, we have sort of light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. And if we fall asleep for about an hour, say, then we'll find ourselves waking up after an hour, right from the middle of the deepest part of sleep, and we'll feel groggy, maybe disorientated, and that can make us feel just awful. And lots of people say, oh, I can't nap. If I nap, it makes me feel worse. That's probably because they're napping for about an hour. If they set their alarms for about sort of 20 minutes, say, then they'll have a short nap and they'll wake up feeling just refreshed without that grogginess.
Well, I used to work early mornings presenting the weather, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and, finishing like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And if I had another early morning, I wouldn't nap in the afternoon because I wanted to sleep early on that day. But if I didn't have an early the following day, I would nap and I would sleep for 2 hours and I would wake up not knowing where I was. I would think it's morning and I've got to go to work. But I felt like it gave me just a little bit of extra. What about shift workers? I mean, you think that 15, 20 minutes is enough if you've been up quite a bit of the, early in the morning?
Yeah. So if you're a shift worker, then of course you may not be able to sleep enough at night. And lots of shift workers, especially night shift workers, tend to sleep for 2 hours less on average every day than people who work 9 to 5. In which case, a longer nap is absolutely a good idea. If you simply can't get enough sleep at night because of shift work or your life or whatever is going on, then having a longer nap, almost like breaking your sleep into 2 blocks, having a nighttime sleep and a daytime sleep is what's necessary. But for those of us who are able to get the majority of our sleep at night, people who aren't shift workers, then we really should try and get the majority of our sleep at night because that's much healthier for us.
So when you do you make up your sleep through the day, does that make up for what you've lost at nighttime, or it never does?
Well, our circadian rhythm means that we go through all sorts of different processes. We release certain hormones, and sleeping in one block when we're used to sleeping at night is much healthier for us than sleeping at other times.
Yeah.
So just because you get 7 to 9 hours sleep throughout the day doesn't mean you're as healthy as somebody who gets the same amount of sleep at night consistently at the same kind of times. But of course, if you aren't able to do that, like shift work or for other reasons, like you've got a young baby that's screaming and keeping you awake all night, then it's much better to try to make up during the day than not getting the sleep. But if you are able to, sleeping consistently at the same time, at night every single day is much better for you.
You gave us a lovely indication of napping in the afternoon, preferably after lunch. I'm always intrigued to know about sleep times at night because there's this saying that, every hour sleep that you get before midnight is like having 2 after midnight. I don't know how true that is. Does it matter? Is there an ideal time for going to bed and waking up?
Well, the most important thing is consistency. So if you normally go to bed at 10 and then you go to bed at 1 in the morning, that's not going to give you the same quality of sleep just because you get the same amount of sleep. If you're normally sleeping from 10 till 7 and then you suddenly sleep from 1 until 11, it's not the same quality because you're not being consistent. It's kind of like that jet lag thing. But the fact that every hour before midnight is worth, every hour before midnight is worth 2 after is more related to the fact that if you go to bed early, you're more likely to get more sleep. Because if we go to bed at 9, 10, we still have to get up at 6 or 7 for work. Whereas if we go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, we probably still have to get up at 6 or 7 for work. So actually we're just losing out on sleep. So it's really the most important thing of all is about consistency. If you tend to go to bed at 10:30, going to bed at 10:30, 7 days a week and waking up at same time every day, 7 days a week, is the best way to be really, really healthy, much better than sometimes going to bed at 10, sometimes going to bed at 2 a.m. That kind of change isn't good for our bodies.
So like keep it at a smaller window. So if you're sleeping at 10:30, preferably, maybe if you got to sleep later, don't go more than like half an hour, because that would be kinder to your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Staying within half an hour to an hour consistency is going to be much, much better for you, for sure.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Lindsay. You mentioned earlier about the circadian rhythm. I'm just wondering if you could explain what that is. I hear it a lot.
Yeah, so our bodies have sort of their internal clock, as it were. So we don't need to see the time for our bodies to kind of know if it's time to wake up, time for lunch, time for dinner, time to go to bed. And that internal clock is our circadian rhythm, and that's what gives us jet lag and helps us to wake up and go to sleep on time. And that's why, as we've already talked about with napping and sleeping, having a regular kind of bedtime, wake time, and trying to sleep at the same consistent time every night is really good for you, because your circadian rhythm is responsible for producing melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, which it produces at night when it gets dark to help tell your body, yes, it's sleep time. That's why it's so much easier to sleep at night than it is, say, at 11 o'clock in the morning.
And I guess I'm sure I read somewhere that it's good to get outside in the morning to get some daylight sunshine, which helps you sleep at night. I guess it's just telling your body clock, this is morning, I'm out, I'm getting the fresh air. And then in the evening, it's like, no, I'm indoors now and it's time to wind down.
Exactly. When we were cavemen, that's how our bodies knew the time. When there's sunshine and bright light, we know it's daytime. When there isn't light, we know it must be nighttime and time to sleep. So as people nowadays, often, I mean, how many of us today have left the house? If you haven't left the house yet, how is your body going to get those signals, those cues for your circadian rhythm to know the difference between night and day? And if we're working from home, we just stay inside all the day time, then that can really cause us sleeping issues, because we're not giving our body that regular input to tell the difference between night and day.
Is that why we have the lights low, do you think, in the evenings as well?
Yes, so when we have dimmer lighting in the evening, it can help to signal to our brains, yes, sleep is coming. It's not a great idea to put on your brightest lights, use an SAD lamp right before bed, because that's really confusing to your body. And similarly, getting some bright light exposure in the morning and during the daytime can help you feel more alert and awake. And if you, at the moment it's summer, the bright sunshine, everything is great. In the winter, people can get seasonal affective disorder, or the winter blues, SAD. Often that's because we're not getting enough light during the day. So in the summer, let's make the most of these lovely bright days and get outside where you can, maybe in the morning, maybe for lunch. Just go and have a walk. Just getting that light exposure is going to give your circadian rhythm a boost and help you feel better and sleep better tonight.
That's good to know. I've had a message here from Martha in Pembrokeshire. It says, hi, Behnaz, I've suffered from insomnia on and off all my life. It got an awful lot worse at menopause, and it was not uncommon for me to have only 1 or 2 hours of unbroken sleep at night. I have started mouth taping, and it has changed my life. I sleep well almost every night and wake up feeling refreshed and sharp. Has your sleep expert come across this before?
Yes, so mouth taping is very popular at the moment, but the science to back it up isn't really there particularly. I'm glad for your listener that it's worked for her, but I certainly wouldn't want people to just go out there and start doing it without speaking to somebody, because there are some significant risks. If you mouth tape, then it can help with snoring, those kind of issues. But if you have a breathing issue during the night and you're blocking your airway because you're taping your mouth shut, actually that can cause other problems. So if someone is struggling to sleep, I would definitely recommend they speak to their doctor to find out what's causing it before just starting mouth taping, because if it works for you, then that's great. But for a number of people, there are some significant risks about doing that.
Martha, thank you very much for getting in touch with the show. Lovely to hear from you. Thank you for sharing your experience with us as well. So tell us what else influences our circadian rhythm.
So when we eat, when we exercise, how much light we get, all of those kinds of things, the things we do day to day, the more active, physically active we are, it tells our body, yes, it's daytime. So that's what we want to do. We want to ideally have breakfast, lunch and dinner at a fairly stable, regular time, get lots of sunshine exposure during the day, do some exercise, stay active during the day. And then in the evening, we don't want to be eating during the middle of the night. We want to not be getting bright light exposure when we should be asleep, and sleeping at that regular time. It's all about regularity, and your circadian rhythm will absolutely love you for that.
Are blackout blinds okay?
Lots of people sleep brilliantly with blackout blinds because, of course, light exposure increases our awakeness. So if we can have blackout blinds, then we get no light, especially in the summer when the sun rises really early or the sun goes down really late in the day. But just having dark enough curtains is often all that you need. You don't need blackout blinds, but if you want to get blackout blinds, fantastic.
Good to know. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Before you go, I'd love to hear your top 3 tips for maintaining a great night's sleep.
Sure. So first of all, consistency, like we've talked about, going to bed at a similar time each day, waking up at the same time each day, and having a pre-bedtime routine can be really helpful. So that means doing something consistent before you go to bed. Just like when we have a baby, we'll give them a bath, milk, story, bed routine, and the baby knows that bedtime is coming before they've even got into their bed because they're doing the same things before bed in the same order. So we could do something like having a consistent, nice sort of chamomile tea before bed, or reading a book, or taking a warm bath before bed. These give signals to our body that it's time to wind down and go to sleep. And then lastly, make sure that your sleeping environment is good. So have a dark bedroom, have a quiet bedroom, make sure that your mattress and pillows are comfortable, and replace them when necessary. Lots of us don't replace our mattress or pillows frequently enough, meaning that our bed's uncomfortable and we might struggle to fall asleep, and we might toss and turn throughout the night, really struggling to stay asleep.
Lindsay, it's been wonderful chatting to you today. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Lots of great advice for us to take away and try and improve our sleep. Have a lovely day. Enjoy that sunshine.